Okay, welcome back everyone to part 2 of the lecture. Now we will look deeper into part E of the question. Okay, so before I even think about my key arguments, I'll just bring all of us through reading extract 7 because that's the extract that they specifically pointed us to. So extract 7 is on inclusive growth. In January 2017, the World Economic Forum produced the Inclusive Growth and Development Report, which is deemed as a practical guide for policymakers and stakeholders aiming to bring together economic growth and more broad-based progress in living standards in their country. The forum recognized that global economy seems to be in a vicious cycle of low growth and stagnation. Okay, so this is something interesting, that the global economy seems to be in a vicious cycle of low growth or stagnation together with rising country inequality. So this is a comment on the current state of the world economy, right? And suggested that world leaders at the beginning of 2017 faced a series of difficult questions. Does the world economy, with limited scope for fiscal action, very low interest rates, and unfavorable demographic trends, face a prolonged period of relatively slow growth? Can rising income in-country inequality be satisfactorily corrected? Societies face we see our keyword, right? Accelerating changes in technology, which tend to reduce employment possibilities, especially for the lower skilled and so lower paid workers. So this I can see, right, is an impact of the accelerating tech changes. Okay, and then can societies organize themselves to to prevent such worsening unemployment and redistributional consequences? The fundamental issue is well illustrated by the fact that over the past 5 years, annual median incomes in advanced countries declined by 2.4%, while GDP per capita growth averaged less than 1%. According to the forum, the ultimate objective of national economic performance is broad-based and sustained progress in living standards. This sounds like my inclusive growth, right? Which encompasses wage and non-wage income, as well as economic opportunity, security, and quality of life, rather than just increased production of goods and services. So this sounds like they're just describing SOL. Okay, so here, right, we have a very rough idea, but the idea is that accelerating changes in technology, we know from the extract, it affects lower skilled and lower paid workers the most. So now I will explain in my key argument 1 how that happens. So we see the start point, we see the end point. As economic students, we must draw the links through economic theory to answer the questions. Okay, so I look at my key argument 1, right? My key argument 1, I would say that accelerating changes in tech will lead to worsen unemployment and redistributional consequences. Okay, so now I will explain, right? So you see that when I have tech changes and advancements, right, what is the one thing that will happen most? What is something that will happen? The way the industry conducts its work, the way things are run in the office will change very significantly, right? So the idea behind tech changes and investments, right, is that it will change the way industries function. Wait, let me write properly. It will change the way the industries operate. And what does this mean? When the industries operate in a different way, right? Change the way the industries operate. And when they operate in a different way, maybe they start adopting more technology into their work. Maybe they start automating more processes. You realize that only the people who are able to keep up with such changes are able to stay ahead of the changes in or the technological advances, right? So because of this, when I change the way my industries operate, right, you realize that the demand for tech-related skills and expanding industries increase. For workers with tech-related skills and workers with relevant experience in the expanding industries, what will happen? They will increase. Correct or not? So when there's tech advancement, maybe it creates a whole kind of creating new industries, new businesses that we never even dreamed of before. Alright? So here you see that because of this, right, not only do the demand for tech-related skills increase, you realize that demand for workers who do very menial jobs will decrease for all low-skill workers. They will decrease, right? Why? Because let's say maybe the low-skill worker, maybe most of their job is just doing a repetitive task, a task that can be substituted by labor, right? Substituted by maybe AI or a robot. You realize that the robot is not only cheaper, it's more productive. Why is it cheaper? Because humans, we need to eat, we need to sleep. Robots can work 24 hours a day. So robots are cheaper, they are more efficient, they are more consistent, and they don't need to rest. So this is what we call this is the phenomenon where it's called capital labor substitution, right? Where my labor, especially my low-skilled labor, is substituted by capital goods. And because there's a rise in demand for tech-related skills and high-skilled labor, and a fall in demand for low-skilled menial job workers, right? You realize that there will actually be a widened income gap, but I'll get back to that later. So here we need to bring in how we know this, right? Look at this extract 7 over here. It tells us that which tend to reduce employment possibilities, especially for lower skilled and so lower paid workers. So I would quote this over here. Because of the improvements in technology, there's a less need for manual labor due to the rise in automation, making them become obsolete. Then this one I'll quote, reducing the employment opportunities ... And then I'll quote extract 7, right? To show that I'm engaging with the extracts. Because they are not, and then if this is all they've done in their life, right? If they don't have any other skills, and they lack the ability to pick up such technological skills quickly, right? They may find themselves being occupational immobile, and hence becoming structurally unemployed. So this is the structurally unemployed, right? Because they do not have sufficient skills. Their skills do not match what is required or what is in demand now. What is in demand now? The tech-related skills and the skills required in the expanding industries, which probably have to do with tech advancement. But because I've done these menial jobs my whole life, I don't have such skills, and I don't have the ability or the willingness to upskill. Maybe I have the willingness, but I don't have the ability to upskill myself. I can't do it. I end up being structurally unemployed. So straight away, I already addressed the part on worsening unemployment, right? So now I want to get to the redistributional consequences. But you see, when technology, because the demand for low-skilled workers decrease and the demand for tech-related and high-skilled workers increase, right? Can you see that this increase in demand, assuming supply for workers stay the same for both, okay? This will lead to an increase in wage rates. This will overall lead to a decrease in wage rates. So because of the technological advancements, right, there is now a widened income gap between the high-skilled and low-skilled workers. Right? Because And this would mean what? This would mean that there is greater inequity in the society, increased inequity, because the low-skilled labor, or rather the lowly paid workers, right, will now have even less access. So low-skilled workers, assuming they still have a job, yeah, low-skilled workers have less access to goods and services. For the very simple reason they can't afford it, including necessities, blah blah. And because the better skilled, the higher skilled, they're getting paid even more, right? And the lower skilled are getting paid even less. You realize this is already an example of the worsening redistributional consequences. I just write redi consequences. Right. And then so you see, when I talk about redistributional consequences, I want to talk about two things. One is equity, right? The ability for different groups of people to acquire goods and services, especially necessities. And the second one I want to talk about is income inequality, because the lower skilled people are likely to already be lower paid. Because of capital labor substitution, now they end up being structurally unemployed. Their income drops to zero, right? And when the income of higher skilled workers increases while the income of low skilled workers drop to zero, right, there is an even wider increase in income gap, right? Income inequality worsens, worsening of income inequality. So you see, I always draw my start points to my end points very clearly. I don't ramble on any more than I have to. Once I reach my end point, I stop. To show the examiner I know where I'm going with this. I'm not just randomly spouting economic theory just to fill the time. Okay, next one. For my key argument 2, right? When I see my key argument 2, I want to say that the start point may not lead to the end point, right? In other words, I want to say that the accelerating changes in technology may not actually lead to worsening unemployment, and redistributional consequences. So now you think about it, right? Why? When I have accelerating changes in technology, right, usually it affects the quality of my FOPs, correct? It's likely going to make my FOPs more productive, because as I explained just now, as I exemplified just now, robots don't have to eat, they don't have to do all that kind of stuff, and so they are likely to be more productive, and the employment of robots can actually reduce the unit cost of production for firms. So if I were to draw it and illustrate it on an ADAS diagram over here, you can see that, let me just draw it out. This is, so let's say my AD is here. You can see, right, when I increase my productivity, assuming that the amount of capital, the amount of factors of production I have are the same, right, not only am I able to produce each unit of output for a lesser price, I'm also able to produce more output in total. So my horizontal portion of my AS shifts down because my UCOP falls, but my vertical portion of AS also shifts to the right because my productive capacity has increased. With the same number of output, I can actually now produce more, right? So I'll just shift up. So this is my new AS as a result of the new the tech advancements. Then here I have Y1. So can you see there's a movement along the AD? There's an increase in my output. Let me just draw the arrow clearer. I'll just draw here. Okay, so how do I explain this? When there's increase in technological advancement, right, it will lead to an increase in productivity. And when I have an increase in productivity, two things happen. One, this leads to a lower unit cost of production and an increase in productive capacity, as firms are able to produce more with the same amount of output and produce each unit of output at a lower cost. So how do I show this? Diagrammatically, this is shown by a downward shift of short run AS and a rightward shift of the long run AS. Right? So this would cause a movement along the AD curve, leading to a rise in national income from Y0 to Y1. So right, I know in your answer key they write that increased productivity will actually raise the level of investment, but as best as possible, not say don't, the rest of the answer is still fine, but we might not want to write that in an exam for the very simple reason because because UCOP we know is something that changes our horizontal AS, right? And if we write that a change in UCOP leads to an increase in investment, it sounds like a change in AS will lead to a change in AD, which is not always true, and it might be a bit of a stretch. So we just stick to the most straightforward, the most intuitive explanations for an increase in output. So here, right, I'll say that there's an increase in output, increase in real national income from Y0 to Y1, right? So then I need to remember my endpoints are unemployment and redistributional consequences. So because of the increase in real national income, right, what will happen? The first thing that will happen is output gap. The output gap falls from YF minus Y0 units to YF minus Y1 units. Which is a decrease of Y1 minus Y0 units. Correct? So when there's a fall in output gap, this tells me that there's actually a decrease in demand deficient unemployment because my real national income increased. So here I already answered, right, that actually when I improve my technology, I could actually reduce demand deficient unemployment, as more people would probably be employed because they need more people to operate the machines. Correct or not? Second thing, so this is what? This is actual economic growth, by the way. Even though my AD never changed, because my real national income increased, there's actual economic growth. Okay, second thing, when it comes to the redistributional part of the income thing, right, it's a little bit trickier because you need to realize that when my real national income increases, people earn more, right? Very loosely speaking. And when people earn more, what does it mean? It means that government can collect more taxes. Be it my personal income tax, my goods and my GST, my corporate income tax, whatever tax. When I can collect more tax, my budget position increases. Basically, government has more funds, right? That's the key thing. Government has more funds and they can work towards upskilling the lower skilled workers. They can invest in such projects with the additional funds so that they can gain relevant skills to join jobs in growing or sunrise industries. So this would help to upskill workers to mitigate the impacts of structural unemployment. So you see, right, with just the rise of real national income, it actually also enables the government to reduce structural unemployment. So you see, from this increase or the advancement of technology, right, not only do we reduce demand deficient unemployment, we also reduce structural unemployment. Furthermore, right, you look at extract 7 again. Just now we highlighted the state of the world economy right now is what? in a vicious cycle of either low growth or stagnation together with rising income in-country inequality. So when I bring about actual growth, right, I can break away from that cycle because I'm having actual growth, right? So I already know I have actual growth, and I can use that actual growth to deal with my rising in-country inequality by tackling it directly. Correct? If you think that this is a bit abstract or a bit far-fetched in the sense like, oh, they collect more taxes, they have more funds to upskill workers, another angle that you can try, right, is that when government collect more tax, they can simply engage in redistributive policies straight away. Redistribution policies. Right? So how can they do it? They can increase transfer payments to lower income households to reduce the income inequality and give lower income households greater purchasing power. So overall, this will improve inequity, right? Allowing, as they are able to now afford, or rather they have access to essential goods and services that they previously may not have had, right? And especially if the technological advancements, right, can enhance the productivity of everyone, you realize that even the low-skilled workers can start earning higher wages because now on the job they're kind of learning more and more skills. So this would also help to reduce the income gap between the lower skilled workers and the higher skilled workers. So right, you realize for this antithesis, even though it seemed very complicated at first, right, we have a variety of angles to tackle from. Personally, right, if you ask me, I feel like the most straightforward one would be increase in tech advancement will lead to the increase in productivity, leading to a rise in national income. So this one I will deal with the unemployment part, right? And then the second part I will do is the increase in transfer payments part. Increase in transfer payments due to the increase in amount of tax collected would directly deal with the redistributional consequences. So I know in exam you don't have time to write all 4 or 5 of the angles that we talked about. So stick to 2 and write it well, okay? At least 2. Why? For this question, you need to tackle worsening unemployment and redistributional consequences. Now, for the last part of the essay, which is my evaluative conclusion, right? Evaluative conclusion, which is about a short 2 marks. So I'll give you 2 possible angles to think from, okay? You just need 1 angle. So using your ATMS framework, right? The one that is most relevant here are your A and your T. So the 2 possible angles, right? The first angle, I'll talk about short run versus long run, okay? The second angle that I would talk about would say it depends on the type of change. Type of technological change. Okay, so this one might sound a bit iffy right now, but I'll go through it in greater detail later. So when short run versus long run, right, you realize that in the short run, technological change would likely worsen structural unemployment, because even if you want to upskill yourself, you want to do anything, it takes time, right? You don't wake up one morning and say, I'm going to upskill myself, and suddenly you're skilled. It takes time. So it would probably worsen structural unemployment in the short run. And as a result, it would also worsen income inequality, right? Because everything that we want to do, policies we want to enact, it takes time. But technological change is very rapid. So we don't have time to react. So it takes time. But if such advancements are able to maybe boost the economy, increase the productivity, blah, 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 right? It actually, in the long run, you can see that it provides the government with more tax, there's actual economic growth, there's more tax revenue. This enables the government to upskill and retrain workers, redistribute income. So enables governments to retrain workers, right? That's one, retrain workers or upskill workers, And 2, it gives them ability to redistribute income, maybe by increasing their transfer payments, right? So in the long run, it would probably help to reduce the unemployment and income inequality, but in the short run, it would most definitely worsen. Okay, another angle which I personally prefer depends on the nature or type of technological change. Why do I say that? Okay, you see, when I talk on technological change, there are two kinds, right? There's technology that complements what us humans do to make us even more productive and efficient in what we do. And there's also technology that is meant to completely replace us. Am I right? So I'm going to group these two kinds of technology into tech that makes us obsolete. Makes us to tech that complement our work. So you realize, right, for technology that makes us workers obsolete, right, these kind of technology, they will, you remember just now we talked about capital labor substitution, they will substitute laborers at work, right? And they will displace us or displace the low skilled workers, and this would definitely lead to structural unemployment and worsening income inequality, because the only people they won't displace are people that they can't displace for now. Okay, but if the technology that they are advancing in are maybe like gadgets or technology that is meant to complement what we are already doing at our workplace, complement the work that we do, make us more productive, you realize that these could actually still help us workers, because in fact it could help us increase productivity, which in turn may help us increase our wages or their wages, right? Because when let's say people are paid by output, people are not paid per hour. Let's say the lower skilled workers, they are able, maybe these robots are easy to use, they are very, very helpful in complementing the work that they do, increases their productivity and their wages could rise. And because of that, it could actually lead to an overall better outcome where there is less unemployment and there's less unemployment and there's also less income inequality, because the lower skilled workers are also benefiting from the advancement of tech. You can see that, right? So increase in wages for lower skilled workers, which means that there's a extent of unemployment doesn't increase that much. Extent of unemployment remains stable. And then income inequality also doesn't worsen that much. Right? Because the workers are not being substituted by machinery and technology, but rather they're being complemented by it. And assuming the wages of higher skilled workers stay the same, in some sense the wages of these lower skilled workers will also increase a bit, and the gap between them, the wage differential between them, might actually even decrease, improving the redistributional outcomes, or rather improving the income inequality in the country. So this is just generally what we will write for this essay, and that's all for this lecture. In the next lecture, I will focus on part F of the CSQ. Okay? See you next time.